All right, welcome to Peeps Creek, the cafe where we serve you delightful, slightly intense, but definitely worthwhile conversations. A podcast focused on bringing people together by drinking, listening, and conversing. So grab your favorite drink and let's see what's on today's menu. All right, people, welcome to Peeps Creek. Yes, it is Peeps Creek, the cafe. This is episode 33, and this is our first straight up no chaser episode. So I am excited about introducing this particular piece to the podcast because it's really an opportunity to have some good conversations, whether it's one person, two people, three, four, whatever. But today I am by my lonesome. But it is 12:40 on Monday, well, technically Tuesday morning, February 9th, and I am recording this to come out on Wednesday, the 10th. And so I just debated about what I wanted to talk about. But before we do that, I know that most places are quarantining, so the bars stop serving alcohol at a certain particular point. But the cafe, we are still popping. Look at that. Don't that look so good? That is what I normally drink on. Technically, some bourbon diluted with some seltzer water because it is late. So technically, I did add a chaser, but not in the conversation. So yeah. So let's go ahead and get to the episode. All right. So like I said, part of the impetus behind this was really to have some good conversations, to discuss some things that I think is important, that maybe, when Denise is here is important, and when Christian is here is important, and whomever is here is important. But it's really an opportunity to just talk, to have some truthful conversations, some heart-to-heart conversations. It could be used for an opportunity to get things off our chest, or just discuss about something that may not be a series that we're doing or a podcast topic, because there are maybe several things going on in this particular episode of Straight Up No Chaser. So what is the purpose of today's topic? So I'm taking out my iPad because earlier today, admittedly between work, I was looking at different videos of some black great artists who I think are great artists, some who I adore and I follow and I love their music, and I can tell you all about their music. Some that I can't, but I also felt compelled to look at videos and to hear some of the things that they were saying, particularly given the fact that it's Black History Month. And I've been struggling internally, sometimes about, I don't know, sometimes I feel slighted by people who I feel are my friends, family, and I just feel like sometimes maybe I should receive a little more, hype, accolades, not accolades, that's the wrong word, but hype about what I'm doing, because I'm doing something positive with this podcast. But the reality is, when I looked at these videos, I had a coming to Jesus moment. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I uncovered that made me think about things a little differently. And so hopefully this conversation can help other people who are creating projects, whether that's music, whether that's writing a script for something, whether that is writing a book, or just going out there and doing TikToks and you're trying to be famous, or you want to be an influencer on social media. Maybe this conversation will resonate, and even resonate with other podcasters who maybe come and go with these feelings. But what I decided to name this particular episode of Straight Up No Chaser is "My Words Are My Most Valuable Possession." And I think that's important for this particular episode primarily, but also about why I wanted to do this podcast. That's the whole impetus of me doing the podcast, was to allow a platform where I can communicate my thought processes, my feelings, have conversations with people, debate about certain issues, um, and just engage in good old conversations centered around drinks, because I do think the concept of libations is important, and it brings people together, and it allows folks to discuss things that they never would have thought about. How many of you have even gone to like a bar in a random city by yourself and just sat down, start drinking, and someone came and talked to you, and then you realize, Jesus, I would have never even went up to you back home, but this conversation is good, right? So, that's the whole impetus behind this podcast. I started in 2018. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the artists that I looked at. So I looked at, of course, my favorite, Patti LaBelle. That is my favorite artist. But I looked at the master class that she did with Oprah in 2015. Then I looked at another artist who I admire tremendously, and that's Nina Simone. I looked at an interview that she gave in 1999. And then I looked at this video from Jay-Z. Now, I'm not a fan of Jay-Z. I'm going to admittedly say that. But I think listening to him gave me a different perspective, and it was listening to him that really motivated me with this concept of words are my most valuable possession. Because in this particular interview, there was a young woman who was interviewing him, who said that she heard and recalled that when he was, I'm just going to, I think maybe 13, 14, 15, the video's out there on YouTube, his mother would buy him 3-ring binders, and that's where he would keep all of his lyrics that he wrote, and he would hide it under his bed because he didn't want anyone to steal it. And the impetus behind that was that his words were his most valuable possession. And that struck me and resonated with me quite heavily, because this is what I do. I do it on my day job as a lawyer, whether that is communicating with clients, whether that is communicating through the written word of motions or what have you, communicating to the court, communicating to the opposite side. My words are my possession. It is who I am. It is what gets me to get a job, to get a client, to persuade someone. And so it's important for me to hone in and recognize that my words are my possession. Another thing that he discussed in that particular instance is that, as you progress in life, whether that is professionally, personally, you are always going to be the core of who you are. But you learn, right? And in the process of learning, then you begin to change, not because you are successful, not because you want to disassociate yourself from who you used to be. It's just a natural progression, but the core of who you are is always going to be there. And so I don't know. I don't know why I really just thought this interview, just listening to him, and it was multiple interviews. They had, this video was a mix, right, of different interviewers interviewing Jay-Z, and at different times in his life. I think one time when he was married to Beyonce, and then another time when he wasn't. But what I noticed is that concept of changing, you can see it evident in the interviews. But you also saw evident in these interviews the core of who he is. And I think that's important. Like, it's important for you to be who you are, because that's how people like you. That's how people get to know you. That's how people get to support you. And so I'm going to stop right there on this word support, because this is something that has bothered me for a moment. Like, I feel like, I spend time, resources, energy on trying to make this platform successful, not because I want to make money. That's always, a desire, but because I take pride in what I do. When I get in front of a mic and I ask other people to participate with me, it's important for me to have a good product, right? It's important for me to have something that people will enjoy listening to, but it's also important for me to have something that someone will want to support. And support comes in so many different ways, right? It is contacting you, send you a text message. One of my fraternity brothers, Josh, is great for this, right? Actually, probably the only one who no shade, no tea, but it is straight up no chaser, right? But constantly hits me up, tells me about the episodes that he listened to, gives me ideas, gives me topics, hooked me up with the concept of the social app Clubhouse. And so it's those small things like that that matter. Like, it doesn't take a lot for people to repost something. Now, granted, you want to repost something that you wholeheartedly think is something worth someone else seeing. Now, I'm not saying just because we're friends that you are obligated to do that, or even if we're family that you're obligated to do that. But I think it's important to hear from those individuals who you consider friends and family, right? That what you're doing is good. They see you, and everyone wants to be seen. How they want to be seen it may show up differently. Someone may want to be seen by having a spotlight. Some people may want to be seen by just being able to have their family and friends saying, "Hey, good job." Some people want to be seen because they want you to support what you're doing, so they want you to repost. Like, I've seen some of my friends who I think are very close, and actually some have actually been on this podcast, repost other people's stuff in our circle of friends, but won't repost an episode of mine, right? They ask me about the podcast, but they won't repost. And so it gets me to thinking, like, okay, is it that they don't think it's a good product? Or do they just have no concept of how that may look? But then at the end of the day, I realized that I didn't do this for them. I did it for me, right? Because my words are my most valuable possession. And it's important for me to be able to use my words appropriately. It's important for me to be able to speak my truth. It's important for me to be able to share what I think and what others think, because it is that ability to communicate and the ability to just create an atmosphere of exchange of ideas that's important, right? I know I may sound like a professor at this moment, because technically I do want to be a professor in real life, but putting that aside, these are things that I think are important. I think about these things all the time. Denise would tell you that we've had a lot of conversations where I get discouraged, right? Because, I don't think, let's say, like some family members, you would think, okay, how hard is it to repost something, right? How hard is it to comment on a video that you put on Facebook when you're commenting on everyone else's pictures and statuses? It gets frustrating, it gets annoying, and then it seems like maybe it's a dig against you. But then the reality is that people got their own shit, right? They got their own lives going on. They can pick and choose who they want to write to, who they want to support, who they want to repost. And so it is what it is. And I also want to give a shout out to my oldest brother, because he is consistent with communicating, coming on, chatting, sending messages of support. And so it's those little things that I think are important in your journey of doing whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's podcasting, whether it's want to be an artist and draw, whether it is rapping, right? My son is in the process now where he wants to get into music. I fully or wholeheartedly support that. And as part of my support, I repost the things that he puts out there, right? I invest in him products so that he can go ahead and actually manifest that desire, right? For me, when I'm supportive of something, right? I'm supportive of something. And so, like I said from the very beginning, support comes in so many different ways, so many different avenues. And so it just gets sometimes disheartening when those who you consider being your closest circle are not supportive, at least as you articulated, right? Or you believe. Or it feels like sometimes they are shady or um, I don't know what the right word is, but shady or want to see you fail. But for me, I think looking at some of these videos today, it just resonated with you keep moving, right? You keep pushing. And there was one thing actually in one of the interviews that Will Smith gave. He says that if you want to do something, you want to develop a craft, right? You want to become something. You want to be a star, right? Let's because that's what he wanted to do. Is that you have to do it with such an quote unquote desperate, obsessive focus. And so when I heard that, I was like, fuck yeah. Like, be desperate about the things that you want in life, right? And putting into place your plan to get there. Be obsessive with that, because if you're not obsessive about it, what makes you think anyone else is going to sign on to it? If you're not focused on reaching whatever it is that you want to reach, why else would anyone sign on to it? Right? So looking at that video, it just truly, truly, truly made me realize that I was thinking about the wrong things, because the reality is, whether my friends, colleagues watch the podcast, listen to the podcast, whether they retweet it or repost it on Instagram or Facebook, whether they comment on my videos or not, the reality is that there are people listening. There's people looking. You know, we're doing great on the charts, podcast charts, so I'm excited about that. And surprisingly, we're doing good internationally. Well, I guess I shouldn't say surprisingly, but you know, so it's those things that matter, because um, if you are focused on something that you want to do and you genuinely want to do it, and I'm going to steal this from Will Smith, and you put such desperate, obsessive focus towards that, you are going to make it somewhere, right? It may not get you to the mainstream. It may not make you a millionaire, but it's about that internal satisfaction that matters, right? Whether it's a hobby or whether it's something that you're trying to make into a business, whatever it is, just keep moving, keep reaching, keep, you know, pushing through. Now, I know there are a lot of things that's going on that may prevent people from doing that. There are familiar obligations. We're in the midst of a pandemic. We got all kind of crazy politicians and politics playing and blowing in our ear. But the one thing we can always have, the one thing we can always have is a good drink. Look at that. A good drink will bring it on home. All right. So let's move to some of the things that I learned from the other people. So in this interview from Nina Simone, I just love Nina Simone. Boom, doom, 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 My baby don't care for clothes. All right. So there was a part where she was discussing the fact that she was a child prodigy. Now, I knew that she wanted to be a classical pianist. I knew that. But what I didn't know until looking at this particular interview was that she started playing piano at 3, not from lessons. It was, she was in church. Her mother got the spirit, and Nina decided, let me go up here and let me put some keys to what's going on over here. And she started playing, right? And ever since then, she had it in her head, her mind, that she wanted to be a classical pianist. Okay, why am I even telling this story? Why is this important? Well, one is Black history, right? So we should be thinking about Black history, right? But there was a moment where she made it to Carnegie Hall, right? She's famous. She's got to Carnegie Hall. I think she was maybe in her 20s, and she wrote her mother a letter. And she said basically she had received a break, but she's still disappointed. And I just was thinking, like, you at Carnegie Hall, you are at the top of your game at Carnegie Hall as a Black artist, right? But then she said, I'm disappointed because I want to be playing classical music because I wanted to be a classical pianist. And she had applied for this famous school. The school slips my mind, but she was rejected because of the color of her skin, right? So I say that to say, I know that for a lot of people, there are so many obstacles and darts that are going to be coming your way, right? Trying to knock you off, trying to make sure you don't make it to that finish line or that bullseye of what you want to do. But she indicated that, yeah, she had the break and she had arrived and she had become famous, but there was always something that prevented her from reaching that level that she really wanted to reach, right? And so it just resonates with you can take it out of this podcast, take it out of whatever it is, anything in life. I think that's a lesson there, right? There is the ability to make it somewhere, but also to still feel as if there's so much more to do. And she said something that Jay-Z also said in regards to you trust your instincts. Both of them said that. And she indicated, because the guy who was interviewing her, he was basically, I guess he was trying to be an asshole, in my opinion, trying to be funny, this white guy. No offense. But, you know, he basically was like, you know, you will go to shows and you'll make people wait. And she said, yes, I make them wait. And she said, because I don't touch that piano until I'm ready and they are ready to listen. Think about that power. Power of that, right? Yes, people may get annoyed sitting there, you know, the show's supposed to start at 8 and maybe she goes to the piano at 8:45, but maybe they were not respectful of her craft, right? Respectful of who she was, respectful of what she had to bring to the table, but most importantly, right, not recognizing the journey that she had to take to get there, right? Because some of us, we have to take a different route, right? And given the fact that, and you know, let's just say what it is, racism was rampant, right? Systemic racism is still present, and the effects of that is ever lingering. And she was in the midst of all that while being an exceptional pianist, but not good enough to be a classical pianist because she was Black, right? And so, and she says, and the reason she did that is not to be an asshole, but she has to be composed, poised, and remember, she said, and she remembered what her first piano teacher taught her, and that is you do not touch that piano until you are ready and until they are ready to listen to you. So you make them wait. Right. So I don't know. I just thought that was a powerful moment. Right. Um, and then I watched the Patti LaBelle Oprah's masterclass from 2015, and there's so many good gems in that. Not just because I'm a fanatic, I am a fan, a huge fan, right? But there's so many gems there in these people's story. I don't care what you want to say about folks' voice, and you might have your opinion, and people try to pit who's the queen versus all that. I'm not trying to hear all that. I don't really care about that because I know who I like and love. But the journeys is something that we can learn from. You can learn from anyone, and that was one of the things that she said, is that no matter how long you've been doing something, right? Stay out of your own way sometimes. That was one of the lessons that she indicated. And she said, I've been singing for years. I've been doing things for years. I've been making trailblazing in certain things, been the first, black group to play at the Metropolitan Opera House, right? But I don't know everything. There are people who's going to come behind me, who's younger than me, that does this better than I do. There are folks who've learned a craft or learned a way of doing the same craft that you're in, whereas you can learn. And that was another thing, is that Patti LaBelle said, is don't dim your own light, and don't let anyone dim your light. Right? Keep that old internal flame growing, right? If you're passionate about something, that passion should be that flame. It should keep you going. It should keep you motivated. You should be excited, right, about what it is that you're doing. Now, just, the other day, I'm just going to say this. I really don't care if this person gets upset or not, because it really annoyed me and irked me. I received a text out of the blue. Was like, do you think your podcast is black? Would you consider your podcast black? And I'm like, hello. We went to school together, law school together. I'm black. I created this, right? Yeah, Christian, Denise, they are Hispanic, but I'm black, right? We're BIPOC, right? Black, Indigenous, People of Color podcast, right? And the catch, though, was, wanted to know, if I promoted you because it's Black History Month, blah, 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 blah. And while I'm grateful for the opportunity, I don't need to beg for that, right? That goes back to the first thing that I said before. You are going to support, promote, because you think the substance and content of what I have to offer is something that is worthy, all right, your followers to hear about. And the fact that it's something positive, I think it's in and of itself a justification, right? The fact that we're friends should also be a factor win in that. And the fact that you can do it because you asked this question, right? These are factors that should automatically go to, not automatically, but these are factors that should weigh in support. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to request people to support me. But I just keep those things in the back of my head, right? Because when someone asks me for something, someone asks for my support, I give it if I can, right? Or even if I see things that people are doing, I communicate with them. Hey, what is this? How can I help? I'll go back and post it. But yeah, so I just don't want it to seem like I'm bitter, because I'm not. But these videos that I was watching today just substantiated at least some of my thought processes, and it helped me work through them, because at the end of the day, no one owes me a damn thing, right? I work hard on this podcast. I do what I do. I like it. I think the product is good. I think the content is good. I think we are steadily improving each and every time, right? And then another thing she said is release yourself and do better. There were some other things, but I think I'm going to end it on that. Release yourself and do better, right? There are always going to be situations that's going to hold you back. There's always going to be things in your head that you might be thinking about something that you're doing that makes you a little hesitant of moving forward. Release that crap. Like, don't let that hold you, right? Don't worry about how many followers you have on Instagram and Twitter. Don't worry about how many people repost or don't repost. Don't focus on that, because you should be focusing on, and this is a lesson for me too, that I've learned from this. Focus on your product, focus on your content, focus on the people who matter, who's listening and supporting. Because those people, those silent supporters, those folks who you don't even know, those are the people who matter, because the content, the substance, the product, right, is what they are getting from you. So why not give them your best? So at the end of the day, I do think that my words are my most valuable possession. I think when I leave this good old earth, my body may not be here, my spirit may not be here, but I'll have left my words. And so that is the most important thing for me, so that my offspring can go back and listen to my annoying voice. So that was the episode of Straight Up No Chaser. Sorry if it felt like it was rambling. Also, don't think that I'm, being bitter or upset about things, but these are things that have been on my chest, and it's important for me to express those, because I do hold things in too much, and that can create health problems like stress, heart attack, hypertension. Release that shit, because if you can't change it, ain't no sense of worrying about it. You understand what I'm saying? All right. So until next time, continue to drink, listen, and converse. Look at that. That looks so good. Look at that drink. All right. We'll be back next Wednesday with episode 34. Next Wednesday's episode is going to be, I don't know if I really like this case, but it was a good discussion. We are back on the A&E series, Accused, Guilty or Innocent, episode 34. Will be out next Wednesday. This episode 33, Straight Up No Chaser. Subtitle, My Words Are My Most Valuable Possession, will be out tomorrow, Wednesday. All right. Peace and love.